Beyond the Ring, a podcast that covers all things in the stock show industry from the informative to the insane, starring Ryan Rash.
I'm just here for the history.
And Dale Hummel.
When the gay is away, bring on Chase.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Ring. This is Dale Hummel, with and without the gay today. Yes, Ryan will be with us for the main topic and question and answer. However, we brought on a guest this week for our main topic, and we actually recorded earlier in the week, and we're a little more organized than usual. But with that said, there's a lot of crap going on in the shit show of the world, and we thought we would record our current events a little bit later, closer to drop time. And our back's kind of up against a wall, and Ryan thought he could make it with us tonight, but is unable to do so. Fortunately, I could think of one person and one person only that has no choice on whether they could come on with current events. I did have others in mind that you just hate to throw that on somebody 5 minutes before they need to jump on and record. But my son Chase will be with us tonight. And Chase, welcome to Beyond the Ring. Your guest appearance last time on Beyond the Circus was good, so let's try it out again.
Hey there, it's a pleasure to be on again. So you want to kick off current events, or what's the plan?
Yep, I'm going to do a little bit of house cleaning first, and then we'll jump right in there. But before I get into our actual current events, we have released a Beyond the Circus this past Monday. A lot of you are probably unaware of that. As Ryan and I posted on our personal page, we posted on the Beyond the Circus page, or Beyond the Ring, I should say. And in a matter of most of the day, I got 5 likes on the personal page. Ryan put it up for over an hour with 1 like. So obviously, Zuckerman and Facebook have really shut that one down. It talked a lot about Russia and the Ukraine and some things that I knew were going to get flagged. There was no way. I usually try to go in and word it so it's a little different, and maybe we don't catch that algorithm to shut us down. But this time there was no way around it, so I just threw it out there, and it was what it was, and it did not go over well with Facebook at all, to the point where I was threatened Facebook jail. Ryan took his down for fear of Facebook jail. Beyond the Ring site let it out a little, but very little. So not many know of it, but it is out there. We did release it on Monday. It was before the State of the Union, but there was plenty going on. So if you want to jump on and listen to a Beyond the Circus, please do so. It is available. With that said, in Facebook jail, our good friends from Boxel Manufacturing, Mr. Boxel, got put in Facebook jail for 24 hours. And over a comment that I'm not even sure what it was. He's put plenty of things up there that shocked me he didn't go to jail over, but it was over something stupid. But I believe he's back out now. By the time this drops, he's back out and alive. And the worry is, I know when I got my first punishment in 24 hours in jail, they stay on you pretty hard. So I'm a little worried for Mr. Boxel. So any support you can give them, please do so, because he's certainly entertaining enough on social media, and greatly, greatly appreciated. With all that said, we're going to jump into current events, and I'm going to lean on Chase just a little bit to get us going. And we've got a lot going on, guys. Obviously, the war in Ukraine, the State of the Union, all those things. And I don't know even where to begin. Chase, let's talk a little bit about maybe a solution for this problem in the world. And when I talk about the problem in the world, we basically have Russia, China, throw North Korea, Iran in there. Basically what we refer to as the East versus the West, the rest of the world, us, the democracies. And there is a serious issue there because we're trying to do what we can to support Ukraine, but we're walking so gently to not offend Putin. And I think that's crap. Am I concerned? Nobody wants a nuclear war, but it's so crazy, the fact that he can go in there and bomb cities, kill civilians, commit war crimes. And I'll bring Chase in to talk about that just a little bit. And we really do nothing other than impose sanctions. We can't step up with our military and take them out, which we could, in my opinion, very easily, but we can't do it because of one reason. And that reason is every time there's even anything that comes out. I listened to our press secretary for the Department of Defense today. I can't even remember his name, but he's on there talking about what's going on in Ukraine, and he's so careful with each word he uses to not offend Putin. It's sickening, absolutely sickening, because every time we do anything or Putin thinks something's going to be done, he elevates his nuclear readiness. And the threat of that nuclear readiness, or that he would actually launch a nuclear weapon, scares the shit out of everybody. It scares me. But if we continue to reward bad behavior like that by giving him or not doing anything we should do because he just mentions it, guess what? You reward bad behavior, it's going to continue forever. And that's a very, very bad path to go down. There are so many things that if we would have done differently, this would not be happening in the world right now. It's very simple. When President Trump had us in energy independence and even a surplus, that in itself would have prevented this Ukraine war because Putin didn't have the finances to do it. Beyond that, I think Trump put enough fear in people like Putin that a little threat of nuclear war, obviously I shouldn't say little, the threat of it is not a good thing, but I don't know that Trump wouldn't come back even harder. So there's a lot of things that could have prevented this, but the simple thing right now that is not being done is we ramp up energy production, and I'm going to say cleaner energy production than what we're getting from Russia in terms of fuel extraction from the planet. So there's no green case to be made here. We're going to use X amount of fossil fuels for X amount of years. I have nothing wrong with moving towards the green, but we can't do it overnight like what this administration and the crazy ass AOCs on the left had us doing. And that just is what it is. So instead of our energy independence, we're bringing in 500 to 600,000 barrels of oil a day from Russia. Today, as I speak, we're paying Putin for oil. Putin is using that money to finance the war in Ukraine. There's blood on our hands. I'm not going to say those that are listening, because I think most of you are pretty conservative. I think we lost a lot of our liberals very early on. But there is blood on the hands of the American population or Biden administration, wherever you want to go with it, because we're financing this war. I can't even imagine it. It's beyond me, absolutely beyond me. With that said, I do not see a good way out of this. I think Putin's back's up against the wall because he's not making the progress that he wanted. Their convoys stalled. There's a lot of things not going right for him. However, when we don't intervene, when the other European countries do not intervene, Putin can level those cities. I think he's come to the realization that occupying Ukraine is not a possibility. So he's gonna level the cities, period. He knows those citizens are going to fight back. He levels the cities and completely punishes the Ukraine citizens for not wanting to become part of Russia, I guess. Maybe that's a win for him, but the place is going to be destroyed. The citizens are never going to want to be a part of Russia. So there is no win for him, but I think out of embarrassment, pride, whatever you want to say it, he's going to win this war by flattening the cities. Now, I don't think occupation will ever take place, so there is no end-out game on this. The only end-out game, Chase, and I apologize, I'm running a little bit long here, I would like, Chase, I'm hoping for the Russian people. The world perception of Putin is so bad right now, and I'm sure that it's leaking out into the population of Russia. I would like to see a coup, and I would like to see the Russian people or whatever needs to happen to get Putin out of office. Chase, I don't know historically, has this happened? How does this happen? I'm unaware.
There's been a lot of coups in history, but the general consensus amongst them is that as great as it is like the people storming the palace to overthrow the dictator, the military always has to be on their side, or at least it has to be preoccupied with something else. Either the military must have been destroyed, or it's off fighting somewhere, or heck, the military sided with civilians, because at the end of the day, military is just a civilian who got promoted a little, and they have family who are civilians and want the best for their families sometimes, unless the government's either scared them or made them loyal.
So even though the civilians would be very upset with this, that's not enough.
You need military backing. So maybe if there was an insurgence on the inside, maybe if the military overthrew them because they decided, you know what, this sucks. Whatever the case is, they just need to have some kind of military backing. They can't do this alone.
Well, do you think that the perception that we're getting from the world, do you think those in the military are aware of it in Russia?
I would have to believe so. Either they're willfully ignorant if they aren't, or they're disconnected from the world. If you have a cell phone today, it is impossible not to see somebody saying Russia is the bad guy for invading Ukraine.
Agreed. We hear things about the vacuum bomb and Geneva Convention and war crimes. I'm not as familiar as I need to be with Geneva Convention, Chase, or if there are war crimes going on. Are you familiar? Can you enlighten us a little bit about that?
long story short, 1863, the Geneva Convention was signed by a bunch of countries. More people jumped on as time went on. More things got added until it just kind of became an anti-war crime thing. Long story short, killing civilians in any way, shape, or form is a war crime. No attacking civilian centers, no attacking civilian objects, no attacking civilians, whether it's by accident or on purpose. That's a big, big no-no on the war crime stage.
So would you say that Russia has committed, or Putin, I guess, has committed war crimes?
I was researching war crimes, and one of the examples it showed was a picture from, I believe, in the last week where civilians in Ukraine were shelled.
And that's simple enough. That's a war crime. What about, and I don't know if it's confirmed. I haven't had a chance to look into it or research it, but I hear that Russia dropped a vacuum bomb. And again, I can't confirm or deny it, but it's definitely out there in the media right now. I don't even know what a vacuum bomb is, Chase.
I can't say I know whether they actually dropped one or not, but I can tell you what one is.
What is it?
A vacuum bomb. It's also called a thermobaric bomb. The way it works is that it's incredibly hot and incredibly fast burning. It levels everything in the blast radius, and then when it cools off very quickly, everything else gets sucked back in.
So it's not a nuclear bomb?
No, but it is high destruction.
And considered a war crime as well, I would assume, because you're going to take out civilians unless it's the middle of nowhere.
I'd have to say, if there were civilians in the crossfire, it'd be a war crime. And there's another piece that is illegal in war crimes. It's that it bans asphyxiating gases, but I'm not sure if this is to be considered asphyxiating gas, though it does consume all oxygen in the surrounding area, because this is a very high energy bomb that detonates very quickly.
Got it. Makes sense. Very much sense. Well, with that, it scares me that he's going to use things like the vacuum bomb. He's going to bomb the civilians in the cities. He's going to do whatever he can to get this done. And I know the Ukrainians are brave, and I know they're tough, and I know they're handing out weapons to all the civilians. And I think that prevents Russia from occupying Ukraine. I get that. But it doesn't prevent them, if they don't think they can occupy Ukraine and oust the government and put somebody in there more favorable to Russia, which at this point they realize I'm sure they cannot do that. So now there is no end game other than he's going to bomb the shit out of the cities, and the world from the outside is going to do, because he keeps threatening that nuclear option. And again, that's rewarding bad behavior. I'm as nervous about nuclear war right now as I've ever been. And I'm not trying to say the sky is falling or anything like that, but my worry is the mental stability of Putin himself. It's a concern to me. There's no question it bothers me. I worry about it. But at the same time, we cannot continue to reward the bad behavior that we're seeing right now. It just does not work at all in any manner. With that said, we did have a State of the Union this week. Chase, I could go through each and every one of those statements made by Mr. Biden. And I'm not going to, because it would take forever. I will condense it down, but give us a little bit of an idea. The State of the Union was Tuesday night. I was on the phone with clients that were trying to buy goats during the sale that night and closing that sale. So I could not watch the State of the Union. It was on in the background. I was trying to pay attention to that and visit with clients. And I am the worst at multitasking. I get distracted more easily than anybody I know. So that wasn't going well, but Chase was in the other room with the State of the Union on. Chase, how did that go for you? It
was painful. After he said the proud Uranian people, I just changed channel.
Uranian, he said that.
Yeah.
He did turn it. I told him he had to record it so I could watch it later, but Chase couldn't even watch it. I went through, and I have to admit I hit fast forward quite a bit, but the fact that he didn't talk about the loss of the 13 fallen soldiers in Afghanistan and the issues that we had there, the fact that he did not mention China once. This is our biggest threat to world democracy, is China. No question. That's not going to change anytime soon. He did not even mention China once, and they are going to impact the state of our union for a very long time to come. The fact that we did not hear anything from him about reversing some of those mandates that he put in, or reversals of the Trump energy plan, and basically went the other direction and jumped on the AOC John Kerry bandwagon that we're going to continue to go green and not open up our energy production here in the U.S., tells me that we're going to continue to fund our enemy. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. Absolutely no sense whatsoever. He released enough oil out of the oil reserves to cover the United States needs for a day and a half or something. Totally irrelevant, in my opinion. Totally irrelevant. If we would simply roll back time and put in place exactly what President Trump had in terms of allowing energy production in this country, we would strangle Putin. We could absolutely strangle him, and the war in the Ukraine would come to an end. I'm not saying he can do a lot of damage prior to that coming to an end, but that is a way out. And outside of a coup, that's the only way I see. And I don't understand. We're willing to take the lives of Ukrainians, or Putin's going to take their lives, and we could stop it or could have prevented it. Either way, we could shorten it. But we're too worried about keeping AOC and John Kerry and the crazy ass people on the left happy with our Green New Deal crap. Speaking of that, AOC and John Kerry are more worried that we're taking focus off the Green New Deal than the lives that are being lost in Ukraine. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. And the fact that Joe Biden did not discuss anything and refuses to allow energy production to come back to life and become energy independent in the U.S. is absolute and total crap. It's concerning to me at every level. He's not doing what needs to be done to take care of an enemy by any means. Speaking of that, Chase, and I'm going to try to look at a bigger picture. Think about the Keystone Pipeline. We'd rather buy oil from Russia than Canada. I'm not happy with the Prime Minister, Mr. Trudeau, up in Canada, but I like the people. And actually, I'm sure I would like the people of Russia, the people of China, the people of North Korea. Just don't like their leadership very much. Stop paying the enemy for fuel. It just doesn't make any sense when we can produce it right here at home. If nothing else, let's produce energy at home for our national security. It's very simple to me. We continue to buy oil from our enemies. We're going to continue to have these kind of issues that we see in Ukraine because we're ultimately financing that. And there's no way they can justify this as cleaner because it's not. We're not going green. We're still using the oil. It's just whether it's pumped out of our country or from Russia. I promise we're more environmentally friendly harvesting that fuel than any other country out there. And I don't even know that most people in the U.S. are aware that we're buying oil from Russia today. As they're killing people, dropping bombs on citizens in Ukraine, we continue to pay them for 600,000 barrels of oil a day. Crazy. We've got a little more I want to cover here, Chase. I'm getting a little long. Chase and I discussed briefly before we got on here, what about Elon Musk coming to our rescue? And I think he can do it. Let's drop cell phones down to people in Russia, China, North Korea, maybe Iran. You can go a lot of different directions with this. Allow them access to the internet through his Starlink program. He can point the satellite that way, and all of a sudden, all these people that have been so isolated and cut off from the world and controlled, they see freedom. Chase, what are your thoughts? Is it realistic? Can we do this?
I think control of information is the key to holding a dictatorship. Now, I'm not sure how much impact it have in Russia, because in Russia, at least in the more developed areas of it, lots of people have devices, and there might be restricted internet. I need to do more research into that, but I know they have devices. China is a different story. I know they have heavily restricted internet in the places that do have it at all, and there are still decently underdeveloped areas of it. And then North Korea is obviously the far and away the most grievous offender. The people there live in constant fear that if they say anything against the government, that one of their neighbors will rat them out to good old Kim Jong-un, and they'll go to the camps, because none of them think they can spread the word to organize a resistance or a rebellion or anything like that, because they just can't talk to each other. They can't talk to people they can't even talk to somebody like 20 miles away, because they'd have to walk there. They're that underdeveloped.
That restricted, and in that way, it keeps those dictators in power. It's a sad situation. I don't know what to think of it all. I do know who the biggest beneficiary of all the sanctions we're putting on Russia, and that's China. That's who's going to supply Russia with everything they need right now, and they will benefit from it. We're in a mess, Chase. It is a mess, absolute mess. We're running a little bit long on time. Chase, do you have anything you want to add that I didn't get in there?
Well, I mean, I took a heck of a lot of notes on the Geneva Convention. There have been a lot of violations in its history. The most grievous offenders were all throughout World War II, in which Germany, the US, and the UK all stockpiled chemical weapons. Italy used them on Ethiopia. Japan used them against China and Taiwan. And then throughout the Cold War, both sides developed chemical weapons but didn't use them a whole lot.
Got it. We committed a war crime when we dropped the atomic bomb, did we not?
Yes, part of the Geneva Convention specifies no weapons that cause undue suffering or unnecessary suffering or anything like that. Now, I'd assume a nuclear bomb falls under that. And then there was another one made in 1997 after the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima that says no weapons that cause long-lasting, serious environmental damage.
Well, Chase, I think this is a little bit like the United Nations. There's a lot in the Geneva Convention, but what do you think Putin really cares about the Geneva Convention? Do you think he cares at all?
Here's the thing about the Geneva Convention. It's enforced by the winners of a war, because if the U.S. had lost the World War II, if the U.K. had lost World War II, if these powers had lost, Germany would not have been tried for any war crimes. The United States would, assuming they were even still considered United States and not just Germany 2.0. The Geneva Convention is always going to be used by whoever wins the war. Even if they committed crimes themselves, they're just going to prosecute the losers, and that might work for
Well, what about in this situation where Ukraine is likely to win, in theory, if there is a winner in the war in Ukraine? So who is going to enforce the Geneva Convention?
It needs to be a global war so that the United Nations are split in two, and then the faction of that two that wins is going to enforce the full brunt of the Geneva Conventions on the other.
My opinion is Putin could give a shit less about it. That's where I'm at on it. But Chase, I appreciate you jumping on with very, very short notice today. And we're going to go ahead and move into our main topic with our special guest. And Ryan's going to jump in here. It's going to be all good. I appreciate it, Chase. Once again, thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
Ryan, as we move into our main topic, I would like to recognize our 2 episode sponsors, Pope Joy Livestock Hauling and Boxel Manufacturing. Those of you that are buying stock online, there are many livestock haulers out there that do a good job, but I can personally attest that Stephen is one of the best. We are personally sending goats with him this week to the south into Texas and next week out to the West Coast. I'm also feeling some warmth here in Illinois today, Ryan. Guess what that reminds me of?
I don't.
Think about it. It's time to order the Boxel Chiller to keep Jessica Rabbit cool.
Is it really that warm there, sir?
Probably 60s. It's 50s today, 60s tomorrow.
Oh.
Now, that doesn't mean we won't get back in the single digits, but we do need to get that chiller ordered. And as many of you know, I do get distracted and forgetful at times. So, Mr. Boxel, if you're listening, please just make this my order right now. Place my order. Thank you to both Boxel Manufacturing and Pope Joy Livestock Hauling. For our main topic, we've brought in a guest. This is one of the most recognized hog judges in the country. I would like to welcome Kade Hummel. In full disclosure, Kade is my nephew, and he had little choice about coming on to Beyond the Ring to talk to Ryan and I about hogs and anything show ring. Kade currently resides in Oldsburg, Kansas, with his wife and 3 children. Grew up in the small town of Cabri, Illinois, showing lambs and hogs. Kade then attended Joliet Junior College and judged on one of the most successful teams that I coached during my tenure. He had the privilege of transferring on to Western Illinois and judging under Bruce Ignell. Upon graduation, Kade took a position with United Animal Health and then on to become a field representative for the National Swine Registry. 6 years at the NSR, he decided to go back to United Animal Health in the Lidner Show Feeds division, where he still is currently employed today. During this time, he's judged hog shows across the country, including Houston twice, the National Western San Antonio World Pork Expo, Dallas, Perry, Georgia, along with a wealth of state fairs across the country. Kade, welcome to Beyond the Ring.
Excited to be here.
Okay, stop everything. First off, Kade, you obviously do not attribute your judging talents or your wins in college to Dale being your coach. Sure.
It was a different situation riding in the van with your uncle.
Okay. That is his politically correct way of saying Dale had nothing to do with it. We'll move on from that. But before we go any further, I know who Kade is, of course, but I don't think that I've ever spent a whole lot of time talking to him personally. And so I'm probably going to embarrass him, and that's fine, but I've got to get this out there. So the first time you judged the Houston Pig Show, you've been to Houston. Those that you don't have it, I don't think y'all know how massive this building is and how long it is from one end to the other, but I would say multiple football field lengths.
Yes.
Well, our steers were always stalled on the very end because it's closest to the parking lot, the cars, the hotels, all this other stuff. And then the hog show is clear on the opposite end. And so obviously I've always been interested in hogs, all this other stuff, whatever. And so I'm just sitting there minding my own business, and my phone just starts igniting, boom, boom, boom. And I'm getting all these texts from the little hog groupies down there. They're like, you got to come down here. You got to come down here right now. I'm like, I'm all busy. It's Steer Show. It's Long Walk. They're like, dude, Kate Hummel is handling the pigs. I said, what did you say? He's feeling the pigs. I'm like, all right, hold on a second. So I just knew Dale briefly at this time. Not that much, but had met him a couple times. And like, it's a long walk, and they like keep blowing me up. So I start picking up speed as we're going across.
Well, the good news is I wasn't going to stop.
Well, see, that's what we thought. Like, this was like a, just a momentary thing, and I was going to miss it. And so, like, finally, I'm a little out of breath. I'm down there, and I'm like, oh, no shit. He really is doing this. Oh.
I wish they'd give you a towel. Like, they give you steer jocks towels.
Yeah, I know. That would have been. Yeah, that'd be nice because those pigs are probably oily.
It gets all greasy and oily, and it's just slimy.
So anyway, obviously it has not affected your judging because you've judged everything and you've judged Houston twice. But I got to know from a personal standpoint, and I'm sure other people have asked you, but they've never done it for all the world to hear.
Right.
Why in the hell do you handle the pigs?
It's simple. So I'll give you the whole story. I mean, it's a little farther back, but the quick answer is I get a better view of what's under that hide with that handle. With that being said, I grew up with...
So this crunchy lamb thing is built into the Hummel DNA. Is that what you're saying?
I have no idea about... I do not handle other animals. I mean, even steers and heifers, I don't even touch, but I don't judge those. So you guys have had Enrique Fugalis on this show more than once. That's Eric Fugate in Spanish, is what I tell him.
That's what I figured, but I was going to double check and make sure.
So he ran Midwest Scanning, right? He ultrasounded all these pigs throughout the country, and he took me with him. I got to go to all these major breeders and type conferences, and that, for that matter, every county fair in America at that time had a scan show. And if you watched, he would grab those hogs, find that 10th rib, and probe them and scan them, and then obviously that reading would be right in front of you. So it got to the point where I started guessing where he was at. Like, okay, I bet you this one's 7,500ths. I bet you this one's 8/10ths. I bet you this one's this. And started playing with the loin eyes as well. I was like, oh, this one has a really big, deep loin. This one doesn't. And I had all the data right in front of me. And it just started. I did it when I started watching him. And as I progressed through college, I'll say this, I didn't really get to do it with Dale because we did one meat contest that actually changed my view on livestock greatly. But when I went to Western, my coach there, Bruce Icknell, we ran a market hog test that we had to collect kill data. And then we also did a lot of collection of carcass data in the Monmouth plant there in Monmouth, Illinois. And so I have read 1 million carcasses, and I have looked at those live and dead and got a great feel for what's under that hide. Like that contest that Dale put us through in Madison, Wisconsin was the most painful, miserably cold, mentally draining contest I've ever dealt with. And I hated every bit of it. But that one probably taught me as much as anything about what I'm truly looking at in a market animal. And I don't do it because I think we need to be at a 0.8 back fat and a 5-inch eye on all these pigs. I don't do that. I am just trying to get a gauge of how much real meat is in there. Obviously, with the profession I'm in, my whole job is manipulation, right? Like I've got to manipulate that pig to make it look as good as I possibly can. And I think in the pig world is two different things. I think it's red meat and white substance. And I think it is, a lot of judges call it all the same as width. But I don't think width is the same. I don't like a fat hog that's wide. I like a muscular hog that is wide. And that is what I'm doing. I am putting a gauge in my own mind of what that fat layer is in that pig's body. 100%.
Oh my. You're going to set the gay off here. You're talking about carcasses and muscle and back fat.
And Ryan, I'm not trying to tell you, I am not telling you that I do that because there's a premium on any set of market hogs that gets sold because of that fat. What I am doing is trying to find the ultra counterfeit or ultra good hog that is being hidden or not hidden with fat.
Hey, I think it's perfectly fine. I just wanted to know because you freaked the hell out of people in Houston that year.
And it's not just Houston. I mean, they
like, oh no, when you didn't you do just Tulsa like a little bit ago? Oh yeah,
they could not believe it.
Oh no, I was like, dude, he's been doing this for a while now. Where y'all been?
Yeah, they still didn't give me a towel to wipe my hand.
That's just rude. See, you got to go prepared. You need to take one with you. And I mean, I'm sure now they'll have hand sanitizer. So I mean, you'll be fine. But
and I don't do it I don't care if anybody follows suit. I'm not trying to do popular. I don't even know I'm doing it when I do it. I just walk up and you'll see it.
Okay, really I'm glad you said that, because like literally when I watched for the first couple of classes, like, y'all, this seems very natural to him. I said, it just the way you did it, it all seemed like it wasn't like a show or anything. And like, I was like, I'm going to say he does this a lot and y'all just didn't know.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know. Whatever.
I promise I did it at Dallas just as much as I did it anywhere. And so, I didn't have one person yell at me there.
Exactly. But anyway, again, I just wanted, to like put it out there. So people know.
I want to ask you a question on that.
Oh God.
Yeah. So what do you identify when you lay your hands on a steer? What's that? What hits your, like what triggers hit your mind when you touch that calf, like in a good way or a bad way?
Now, Ryan, I'm going to hold you to being honest here because I know the answers. You be honest.
I'm going to be honest. I think that 95% of the time that I could not have to handle them and pretty much know what's under there, because, I mean, and it's just real easy to read top shape on a steer. I think what you're talking about in terms of the pigs, about them being manipulated more, I think that's very true. I think there is a very valid point to that. And I really liked what you touched on in terms of you like a muscular wide hog, not a fat wide hog. Well, now everybody's gotten so good at making it look smooth and making it look shapely that unless you got a trained eye or do stuff like that, a lot of people fall for that trap. And so I think there's a whole lot of validity in what you're saying right there. The steer deal, it's a little different for me because I don't think that we have them nearly as fat as we used to be honest. And especially being growing up in the slick sheared genre of it all, I just learned to read shape real well. I tell Dale all the time, like, people would flip out, but I could just not handle almost anything unless it was a really close pair, regardless of whatever. And like, people would die and like stroke out and like chase me with like whips and chains and torches, and that's okay. I mean, I've had that happen before.
But is that not about a part of what you should do as an industry leader?
I don't know, because I really don't like being chased with torches. It's happened before.
I remember, and you do too, 8-9 years ago, they didn't handle the steers at Fort Worth.
Oh, sweet Jesus. And you would have thought he had shot everybody.
I mean,
literally.
It was the worst thing in the world.
Oh, my God. You would have thought he had literally stuck knives in these children's hearts right there in front of God and everyone. I was like, people.
I loved it. I mean,
I was like, people, y'all need to pull it together. I think what every sorter should do is what they feel they need to get the best read on the animals and move on. And again, obviously, everybody is comfortable with different stuff and like that. But I think what you do handling the hogs, I really like what you touched on. I think in the same thing, if I didn't handle steers or handle sheep or handle goats, those people would flip out so bad that it's probably not worth it. I mean, literally, I'm trying to get them to figure out that, like, if you take the cattle the opposite direction of the ring and you don't have to switch and turn around and all that, it's a lot more efficient. And it's real hard to catch that on right now. So I'm going to stick with that for now. And maybe we'll move on to the non-handling of it all.
I don't disagree.
In a few more years.
Change is not easy, but.
No, it is not. It is not.
I also think that without trendsetters, nothing moves.
You are correct on that, sir. There is no doubt.
And Ryan, I'm going to interfere on the lamb and goat handling. When you're going up there, I'm gonna and you and I've had this discussion off air. You're going through the motions, and occasionally you might run into something that you didn't expect as far as what you visualize. But for the most part, you feel very comfortable with what you're going to handle before you get there. I feel very similar. I will handle to see where that hydration is. And I'll be very honest, I handled it to see if there's that crunchy top.
You and your crunchy sheep. You just love them.
Crunchy sheep and we don't blend
love
very well.
them so much.
I do not look forward to them, and I cannot imagine people would continue to bring them to me. They do.
I'm going to solve this for you. You should not judge sheep shows anymore.
I'm not arguing that.
You should just say no. Just like to drugs, Dale. Just say no to sheep shows. Do the goats, do the cattle.
Okay. Once I judge a sheep show that there are no crunchy tops, I will stand back. I will dismiss myself.
I'm going to put together a show of 5 sheep and make sure none of them are crunchy, and let's call it
we're
over
done.
with.
Then you don't have to listen to it anymore.
Because what the people don't understand is y'all think he talks about it on here. I'm the one that gets the call after the show, and he chews on me for 45 minutes. Like, I sent the crunchy sheep up in there.
Yes.
All right. I'm like, hey, do this and send this one to Dale. He'll love it. No. But anyway,
no.
We're veering off the hog topic.
That's okay. I think it's all good. And Ryan, I love it that you're talking about maybe a little bit of the end point, the carcass of the world, a little.
I think the man makes very valid points. He makes way more sense than you do most of the time. So I'm a fan.
I agree. While we're talking about that, Kade, I'm gonna push another direction that you and I have talked about just briefly, and Ryan would be unaware of it. What do we need to select for in the ring, or more so, what happens to these animals after the show? What's going on there?
And that's something that the majority of the world doesn't think about, and especially during the time that they're feeding the animal. With a lot of these stock shows, especially up north, no longer have an option for a truck. You have to take your own pig home. There's no massive truck that's going to take it to the nearest harvest center or anything like that. So now we have to find our own outlet for it. And I know out here where I'm at, if I take my 250-pound pig to the market, I'm going to get $25. And that's it. It doesn't matter if that hog weighs 390 or 250 or 180. I'm going to get that $25. And so a lot of people, what we do is we take those animals home and we put them on Facebook and we say, we have a butcher hog who wants it. And those things are going to our friends, our neighbors in our community. And so that's where
y'all some trust in people.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. So we have to make sure that thing is going in the right direction, right? Like, why jeopardize? And here I sit. Dale knows this, but here I sit with a little girl who is extremely allergic to eggs. I mean, can't have anything that has an egg in it, or she breaks out. And we carry an EpiPen everywhere we go. And with that being said, I now understand why we can't feed peanut oil fat to pigs. I know why the penicillin withdrawal is the way it is, because there are some people that literally can die if they ingest something that's been that way. And then that's where I think we got to be careful of what we do to these animals just to get us to the backdrop. And it scares me a lot of times because I've seen it firsthand in so many places, the needles and what we put in them to just try to get us over the edge. And I'm a bigger believer in hard work and selection and a good animal rather than taking a shortcut and a quick needle or this or that to get you to the backdrop.
I think maybe an incinerator if we go out the show ring gate, incinerate, we don't worry about it.
And unfortunately, I think that happens.
No, I think so too. Ryan, you didn't eat many of your show steers, what you're telling me.
No, we did.
Okay, see that?
I had a plethora of things. I mean, we had way too many on feed.
Now we know. We know why you're crazy now.
No,
I've got it.
Yeah, that's
it. The only conservative game on the planet. Now there's an explanation.
That is it. But no, we still eat Daddy James's animals. But no, we did. But again, I also knew what was going in mine pretty much all the time. But I think that Kade makes a very valid point. I did not know, and I'm going to show my ignorance here. I did not know that up north, that those state fairs and stuff like that, there was not a truck, because literally at every major show in Texas there is, and most of the county fairs, even if it is an actual sale where that animal dies, the county somehow gets it processed and whatever to those things. So I think that puts a very interesting twist on it, because I did not know that. And so that's good that you learn things every day. I try to. So I had no idea that even existed.
I'll tell you a good story. So I was working with the National Swine Registry, and we were at the Pork Expo there in Des Moines, and we offered a truck. You didn't have to put them on it, but we offered that truck, and I was coordinator of that semi, so I had to load them. And there was a pig that had a prolapse, and now it was out maybe a half inch at the most, maybe not even that. Not very big at all, right?
Right.
I loaded that bear, and it probably sucked it in a matter of minutes. I loaded that barra, and I loaded that semi, and that semi was there hosing those pigs down. I get a call from my boss, who is 25 yards away from me, and says, Kade, I need you to come to the office. And I said, yeah. I said, I'm loading this semi. He said, yeah, get here now. So I go up to the office and sit down, and he has his laptop up and pushes play on a video. Somebody stood there and recorded me loading that bear that just had a prolapse that big. I mean, it was tiny, and said that if I didn't go in there and retrieve that barrel off of that trailer, that they would submit that to PETA, and that we'd shut this whole show down.
Are you for real?
That was the last time the NSR took hogs.
Jesus Christ.
No, that's
Who would do that?
And that was before that was flip phone era. That wasn't iPhones.
And obviously, at the World Pork, these people were there to show. So, I mean,
there's at that time, there was a huge trade show with a lot of international attendance. This would have been back in the early 2000s.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
with you.
So it was more than just that pig show then.
What a prick.
Yeah, it was scary. I mean, it was terrible to walk in the belly of that semi and find that pig and try to walk it back out of that.
Yeah, that could not have been fun.
Yeah,
at all.
It was good times.
I bet. No wonder you left the NSR.
Let's take the medications, the different feed additives. And I mean, when we go to a show now, and Ryan and I make fun of it, when Mr. Fugate goes to a show, he's got 2 racks of 55 different supplements. And I don't
why
even
you
know
gotta
if he knows
always
what they
pick
are.
on him? Like,
He
why?
doesn't
It is pretty easy.
It's the truth.
Why?
He's proud
You
of it.
did this when he was on there, like Elsa. Let it go. Okay,
No,
let it
he's
go.
He's very proud of it. So what I'm getting at is we feed all these supplements. We don't even know what some of this magic dust is. It's mostly nothing and just cost you a lot of money. But if we stop and get beyond what that's maybe doing to the carcass and injections and things that Kade talked about, I thawed out some pork chops last night, and I opened them this morning thinking I'd have them for lunch or whatever. And this was a show pig, and it's probably freezer burnt because it was a couple of years ago. I'm sure it was freezer burnt. But I opened that up, and this show pig wasn't ultra lean. He just average, very average everywhere. But I pulled that pork chop out, and you want me to tell you how much marbling's in there? Absolutely none. Irregardless, if it wasn't freezer burnt, I would have thrown it out anyway. I fed it to the dogs this morning, just from the standpoint that I think we're in a situation, especially if we're using Paline and different things, we're in a situation where the eating quality of this some of these show animals is just gone. It doesn't exist anymore. And Ryan, I know that doesn't concern you, but I still want to bring something just a little bit back into the show ring that we can apply to something. And if that's taking the animal home, putting it in your freezer and making that a product that has eating quality, just that much of it right there. That's all.
Do you feel better now?
Yeah, but I've never eaten one of our goats.
I was going to ask you if you've ever eaten one of your goats.
I have not. I'm not opposed to it. I just haven't. Partially because the darn things, the market price of them from a harvesting standpoint or the butcher price is so high
It's
that
beautiful.
you can eat anything else much cheaper than goat. I cannot imagine goat. They're talking goat going to $6 a pound live weight. And there's so little meat on most of these goats. By the time they hang them up, take everything off that carcass, bone them. I mean, you're paying $20-$30 a pound for edible product. I'm out.
Yeah, I have no. Ryan, do you eat goat?
I do not. I mean, I have before, but it is not something that I enjoy. And I don't, maybe I've just never had it cooked well or whatever.
No, I hope I'm not that hungry. I don't care how well.
Okay. I'm trying to not, offend Dale's.
No, it's okay.
Whatever, but it is not something I enjoy. I'll tell you what I enjoy less than goat is lamb.
But lamb is so good.
I'm
in.
I'm out. I'm with you, man. I can't do it.
A quick goat eating story. The closest that I came to eating goat. My oldest son Dylan and I and the family was going through Texas. I don't know, maybe before we even bought all the goat. We were searching for goats or down there delivering. I don't know why, but it's a long time ago. And we stop at those Texas open pit barbecue, roadside type barbecues. And I love them. Most of them are amazing. They're everywhere. And Dylan's always, he'll eat anything. So they had goat on there. So he grabs a goat, and I think it was like the foreshank, that front leg. And I'm thinking, oh, that's not going to be very good. But I let him do it. He takes a bite or two of it, doesn't really say much. I said, Dylan, you remember that billy goat at home?
Oh.
He says, all the billy goats. He says, do you remember where they piss on themselves at?
Oh.
He just refused to eat any more of it. Just couldn't do it. I could eat goat. I don't think I'd enjoy it. It'd be difficult.
When I was in college, first thing was they were just starting to put goats in judging contests my year. And I'll never forget, there was a deal at Washington County for collegiate judges, and it was basically only the Texas teams that went, but they all did go. And so anyway, they had a goat class, and a guy by the name of Big John Kearney. Anyway, he ran ramshot over the goat thing, and he gave us this lecture that if you give him a barbecue pit and all this other stuff, that he'd make that goat so good, whatever. I'm like, yeah, I don't believe it, but whatever, dude, if you think so. And then Dr. Sean Ramsey, who was my favorite professor at A&M, he had an advanced sheep and goat class, and you could get extra points. I didn't need them, but he decided that I was going to have to do this anyway. You could get extra points if you go to Outback Steakhouse, order the lamb and eat it. He'd give you extra points. Well, I me being a genius that I am, I just went and bought lamb and got a receipt and took it. He's like, oh no, I don't trust you. He took me back there and made me eat it. It was terrible idea. But there you go.
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan of lamb. Not so much mutton, but I spent that summer in Australia during college, and they fed me lamb or mutton every day. And I can't say that I was that high on it when I first got there, but it's almost an acquired taste over time. And now lamb chops or rack of lamb's probably my preferred meat. But my wife gets very upset if I cook it in the house. She says it stinks the house up for a day. It's all bad.
Everything smells and tastes like lanolin, and it's just
I get it. I get it.
I'm out.
Yeah.
Well, the next direction I was gonna take this one, and again, this is just topics that Kade and I have discussed recently here, just to bring to light. And one of the experiences, and I took Kade around a lot of different places, and he got to go around everywhere scanning. But when Kade was showing hogs, it was a little bit different era, not trying to age him at all. But Kade, you brought up the fact that it's unfortunate now that there's a disconnect between breeders and the stock show families or the feeders.
Yeah.
If you want to expand on that, please have at it.
I do. I think it's obviously a time, everything evolves into something that is completely different than what it was at one point. And I think if we're not careful, that's where we're going to take all our stock industry. Is everything's going to be fast food. You're going to order your pig, you order your steer, you order your lamb, and somebody's going to come drop it off. They're going to give you a check, and you don't know anything about the journey that animal had prior to that, and the stories that go into making that animal. And the interesting thing about that is why are these kids that are being treated like that? Why are they going to want their kids to show? Why are they going to push their kids to show or encourage their kids to show, I guess is properly said, if they don't do anything but this is a quick hobby to appease their parents? And where I got hooked, where I have a love and a passion for it is by traveling with Dale to these farms. Every spring break I had when I was in high school, was in a red and white Ford F-150 with a black wooden box in the back and putting on more miles than you could fathom, going in and out of nursery after nursery after nursery. And this is way before you had anything like a chip barn. And everything was on wire, or Gene Weber was the only one that had them down on any sort of fitting area of whatsoever. But you got to know those people, and to highlight it, I ran into Steve Rodeball in my Casey's when I was 17 years old, and in my Casey's in Illinois where I went to high school. Steve Rodeball was, happened to stop in there and get a drink, and he's from Rensselaer, Indiana. And my jaw dropped. Holy cow! I've got a legend in the swine industry in my Casey's, and he walks up. He's like, "Hey, Kade, how's it going?" I mean, I couldn't believe it. I just thrilled. And so then when I took the NSR job, all those people that Dale and Eric and everybody took me around to, I already knew them. And it wasn't because I won every show, and it wasn't because, my family bought every major boar or had anything to do with any of that. It's the fact that I had been on that farm and I had shook Dave Kilmer's hand, and I had shook Dave Walters' hand, and Steve Earnhardt's, and Tom Farr and John Lane and Matt Maxwell, all these guys that I grew up just idolizing. I knew them. And the only reason I knew them is because they took time to show me their animals and tell me about the sows and tell me about the boars. And from that point on, I wasn't going anywhere. I was stuck in this industry from then on. And I've made my living in the pig industry all but 1 year of my professional life. And it didn't take me long to get back to it. But it's because of things like that, because of Tom Farr taking the time to tell me about the genetics on the side of thing, or Dave Kilmer taking me to the tent at Expo, showing me a black-headed boar that was, the most phenomenal animal I've ever seen. And he didn't have a pedigree because he was black-headed, but Ray Hankus buys that boar for $10,000 and revolutionized the show pig industry in our country that year with that boar called Pinnacle. And he sired more champion bears both in our country and in your country, Ryan, than you can ever imagine. And I got the breeder to take me to that tent and show me that boar personally. Was just the coolest thing in the world. And I think we're losing that. And Ryan, you could tell me if I'm wrong, but I see so many kids that don't even understand the cool thing that it is to breed these hogs, to farrow these hogs, or to calve out these calves, to lamb out the ewes and goats, and all be a part of that mix, even if it's just a visit to the farm. But we don't even know those people right now anymore. We don't know where the animal comes from or the backstory, and we don't know any of the cool things that relate to it. And I'm sure, Ryan, that you can touch on this. Every great barrow that I've ever been associated with, or pig for that matter, has a unique story somewhere where it about didn't make it. It about didn't make the cut. It didn't make the trailer. It got sifted at this event. It got this at this event. And those are just cool things that I think if these kids aren't a part of, we lose them in the next generation. And I worry about that. I see county fairs get smaller. And yes, some get bigger, but I see county fairs as a whole get smaller because the kids are not as interested. They want to go play soccer or softball or baseball, which is great. I loved playing sports, but I had a stronger passion for the livestock than I ever did the sports.
Yeah, I think you bring up some very valid points, and I get exactly what you're saying. I mean, I can remember going and to those deals, whether it was buying steers or heifers or even sheep. The one goat experience, we're not going to bring that up again, or pigs. And, talking to those people. And I think it is one of those things that I think something that you really touched on that hit home with me when you were talking just then is it was looking those people in the eye, shaking their hands, and knowing that maybe not the next time you saw them, they might remember you. I guess that was the thing. Maybe they'll remember who I am. And that was the thing. Just like you ran in that guy in the gas station, etc. Like that was your hope. Like, maybe he'll remember me the next time I see him around, or maybe she'll remember me. And I do think that part is lost. And again, I'm not here to bash the internet or how Dale makes his money off online sales, but
thank you, Ryan.
Online sales is what has done it. And
I don't disagree, but that does not take away the fact that these families can't travel.
No,
because at the end of the day, Ryan, I guarantee if you look at the sale results, the majority of the people that buy are the same people that have been buying.
No.
I mean, yeah, you get new ones come and go, but it's still the habitual buyers buy from the same people.
Right.
But there's less communication in it, less interaction with it.
Right. But I'm not saying that online sales gave the opportunity to cut a whole lot of that out.
Yeah.
Now that is what I'm saying. Before that ever came along, you didn't have any other way but then going to that place or going to a sale or stuff like that and having that one-on-one interaction with those people. Online sales is what now we have another option that cuts that whole part out of it. And I think that is a great detriment to everyone.
Ryan, do you buy a lot of livestock online?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not, because
have you ever?
I have bought a couple online, but I had also been to that place to look at them first.
Okay. So here's the funny thing. I mean, it's not funny, it's the reality. I work a lot of online auctions. I mean, I do. I work a lot of them. And so I'm in constant contact with those sellers. Do you know how many people actually make a phone call before they buy that animal, or how many people have actually seen it?
I would say very, very
it
small
is such
percentage.
a small margin.
Like 10% maybe.
And all my guys ask me, hey, I got videos. Well, you want me to put them up? And I really say, no, because 90% of the people that study a video, they overanalyze it. On a baby pig especially, we make its head up high to chase something, so we can get that geek neck look. But those rear legs are not comfortable because that's not the natural stride, and they all call him a crippled. I'm like, no, I've seen that pig. He's not a crippled.
Right.
Well, he looks like in the video. I don't want to be arrogant here, but I've seen the pig. You haven't.
Right.
And now you're questioning me.
No, and I can't tell you. I guess I've finally weaned them off a little bit. Like, I would have buddies of mine, people that had bought stuff from me. Hey, have you gone to so-and-so's site and seen lot whatever? And I'd be like, no. And they're like, well, could you go look at that one? I'm like, yeah, but again, you do realize that video, what's up there, that was hand selected for everybody to see.
Somebody was paid.
And again, I'm not
video.
bashing on this. I mean, I get it. But like, literally, they hand selected what they want put up there from the views and the angles and everything else.
Yep.
So I can tell you what I see, but you're not going to come back at me when you buy that thing and say, hey, well, this is right. You should have gone in person.
Yeah.
And I have bought stuff off online sales, but I saw all those in person. I'm a big believer in that. And again, in the people that I dealt with on those things, I mean, it was enough money that it warranted seeing those things live. You know what I'm saying? And so I get that convenience is a thing and time is short everywhere and all this other stuff. I don't think there is any substitute for number one, viewing that animal with your own eyes, or whoever is your leader, whoever is the one selecting whatever. I think that there is a whole bunch that kids are missing out on when not only going to that breeder, broker, whatever, but the time spent in the truck with your family.
Oh, it's
headed
awesome
that way.
I mean, it's times that I look back and I vividly remembered. I mean, I don't know if you've drove with Dale ever.
Yes, twice.
It's scary.
It was terrible. Yes,
he's late
awful.
for everything. According to the speedometer. I mean, we
literally went off the highway at 80 to go to a watermelon stand.
For what reason? There was a good reason
watermelon stand.
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe Indiana or Ohio.
My life is worth more than a watermelon.
A watermelon. But and so here's the story you'll like, Ryan. So we Dale and I, my junior year, I remember it was that year. We go to Gene Weber's, I don't know, Dale, 3 or 4 times, and we find this white Barra that we love. We both agreed that this is the pig that we like. Now, Dale could not go to the sale that this Barra was selling at. And Ryan, you got to help me out here and tell me what you would have done in this situation. As we left that farm the last time, Dale hands me a check and says, buy that Barra. Okay. And this was before cell phones. All right. So we didn't talk to each other every minute of every day.
Right.
This was the conversation that we had, the last conversation before that pig sale. Mm-hmm. I'm all excited, nervous as all get out. I drive down there. And this is what, Dale, probably 1994, 5-ish. Pigs weren't at the value that they're at today by any stretch. I mean, you didn't have $1,000 pig at that time. The pig brings $600, right? Mm-hmm. I am the champion bidder because Dale says,
buy the pig.
Buy that pig, Kade. You want to know what Dale did to me when I told him how much that Barra cost?
Well, no.
Chewed me out.
Because Dale spends $6 and he thinks he's going to be broke.
This was a solid white crossbred pig. They aren't
give
supposed
a shit
to bring
if it was purple
$150.
and pink polka dotted. You gave the boy a check. You told him to buy the pig. That is what the man did. He followed instructions, sir. That's what you're supposed to do to your elders.
They did not bring $600 then. They did not.
Did the pig win something?
He won the most shows I'd ever won with.
So shut up, Dale.
No, he was
now,
a good
to Dale's point, though, he wins a lot of jackpot shows or open shows because we didn't have jackpot shows. Wins my county fair. Only bear I'd ever won my county with. We get to state fair, and I think they put him 418th and basically called him a white market hog. They did not even analyze him.
Oh.
And I'll never forget this. Mark Hogue the Black Hawk was helping pin, and Mark was on that team, and he was holding my gate, and he looked down and he said, "That is the cleanest, whitest hog I've ever seen this low in a class." Never forget it. They never even talk to you. You're just like, okay, this is these guys can go back to the barn.
That's nice.
That is it. I'm going to come in and defend the online part just a little bit. I feel a little obligated to, but I really appreciate the points that Ryan and Kade are bringing up here and those relationships. And I guess I'm actually gonna go that direction, even though it goes against what I'm making my livelihood on. when we post a sale, we have a sale tomorrow, and I can just go through what's happened the past
you have
few
a
days.
sale every Tuesday,
every
week
Tuesday.
of the
Pretty
world.
much every
But anyway,
Tuesday.
we're glad you put that thing in there, so in case they miss this week,
Just in case.
there will be another one next week.
That's what I tell every bidder when they say, "Hey, we didn't get one." I said, "We got another one. There's more
There's
goats in the
another
barn.
one next week.
We
Come
got
back
more
now.
coming." Okay, so
come back now. You hear?
we're going back to the point of it. We will picture the goats. We'll put them up online, and the wethers are slick shorn, so I feel a little better about they can get an idea what they look like. But these does that we have, they're incredibly hairy, shaggy. I mean, phenomenal hair, and our manager Craig can carve them into whatever he so chooses. I mean, it's hard to know what's underneath there, so we'll at least take a video of those just with my cell phone. But we don't post them and for a different reason than what Kade was talking about. We can post those on the site, and that'd be easier because then we don't receive all those texts saying, "Hey, can you get me that video of the doe?" and so forth.
But that gets you communication with the buyers.
Yes. We intentionally don't put them up there because, as Kade mentioned and you agreed with, there's a portion of the population, and it's a fairly large portion, that sometimes doesn't call. They don't go to the farm and see them, all those reasons. But if they text us or call us and say, "Hey, can I have that video?" we can actually begin to communicate and describe these.
Then you have started a dialogue.
Absolutely. And I feel a lot better when we can talk to those people about that. And I'm going to defend some of the online sales as well, because depending on the time of the year, we'll have people through about every weekend before that Tuesday sale. It's just pretty much an open house. Whenever you want to touch base and we're home, we're going to show you those goats. Well, we'll have people flying from California, from Texas, from all over the country that will take the time and come and look at those in person.
I'm not kicking the online thing because I think it's good and it's convenient. It's easy because you can gather a lot more livestock if you're buying them, and then gather them all at once rather than the old days where you had to go on March 2nd and that was the day you were going to bring everything home, period. You can kind of set yourself up for that a little bit more. I just wish that there was, just like you said, I love that theory, that thought of not posting that video because you want that contact. I love that. That's a awesome way to get that interaction.
I think it's been good, and we do get a lot of requests for those, and we can start that dialogue. And I don't think we can, and neither of you are going to do this, but the online sale, we can't necessarily blame for the families not coming to the breeders or the brokers or whoever, but it makes it so convenient.
It's motivation and laziness.
Yeah, it makes it so convenient and easy.
Yes.
You don't have to. I don't think there's anybody out there. I'm sure there's somebody, but for the most part, anybody hosting an online sale, whether it be a breeder, a broker, in any species, if you asked if you could come visit and look at them in person before that sale, very few of them are not going to allow you to do that.
No, I agree with that completely. And again, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it is now given the option where they don't have to do any of it. Yes. They don't have to go. They don't have to have a dialogue with them. They don't have to do anything. And it is convenient and it is all that. And if it didn't work and it wasn't successful, they still wouldn't be around, and they are.
Right.
And they are around more and more and more every single day. Yep. And so, yes, they have positive points. But with everything, there are things that, with the good and the bad and change and evolution, there's things that you miss. And I do think that Kade's point is very valid. And again, I think the way that we counteract that is because it's there. And I'm going to say this, and it's probably not going to work, but I think the way you counteract that as much as you can now is when you go to these shows, if you bought one from Dale and didn't see him, or whoever you bought, that's when you take the time to go up, introduce yourself, say, "Hey, I'm so-and-so. I bought this one from you," all this other stuff. Go around, meet the other breeders and talk to them. And everybody's busy at a show, and I get it. And I'm the last person that wants somebody to come up when I'm getting something ready and all this other stuff. But if that's what you do for a living, that's part of it. And I think that's the best way to counteract what we're missing there. And again, when you leave that interaction, I hope that your hope is maybe they'll remember me, because there is something to the maybe they'll remember you. And the one thing that I want to put in on this, they're going to remember you if you give them something to remember. And that's how you present yourself, the things you say, stuff like that. And that's what you've got to do that in life, to be successful, no matter what it is. So you better start now.
That's why I think it's kind of funny when you judge these shows and you put somebody down in fifth or fourth or something, and they kind of throw a tantrum and they kind of just lose their cool.
You remember them.
And I just want to sell it like, what are you going to gain out of that? Out of making an ass out of yourself in the middle of the ring in front of everybody?
No.
Like, if you dare drive another one at me, what do you think is going to happen? What good is going to come out of this situation? I just so bad want to ask them that. Like,
and I don't know if you listen to many of these, and I would hope you don't, since you've had to listen to Dale your whole life. God bless your heart. But
Thank
anyway,
you, Ryan. Thank you.
I say all the time, and I think this is right. Like, there is so much in the subconscious that affects a sorter when they're judging, and it's environment and background. But just like you said, that right there, you're not intentionally gonna place that person's pig that showed their ass down.
Oh.
But the next time you see that kid, there is going to be a negative connotation in your subconscious that is going to work against that child.
And they will not get the benefit of the doubt. I will not beat anybody if they have the best animal. But we all get close pairs and we all have to break them on something.
Right.
You will not get the benefit of the doubt.
No, and
I will probably be harder on your animal when I critique it than I normally am, just to make a point.
And then in the same token, there will be somebody that was 6 that will come up after the show and thank you and and whatever, and like there will be a kid at almost every show that you remember for the opposite reason. Maybe they didn't have as good a day as what they did, but they came up and they wanted to make sure that they appreciated your time on. The next time you see that kid, you're gonna be like, "Hey, I remember you. You're a good person."
Someday, Ryan, I'll tell you the story that happened to me the second time I judged Houston, where I made an impact on someone's life. That they sent me an email that I almost sat in front of my computer and bawled about because it was so heartfelt. It was as touching of anything that anybody's ever said to me after a show.
No.
And trust me, when you judge Houston, sometimes they don't say great things about you after a show.
I can't imagine that. Really?
Oh, I can only.
Yeah, it gets a little interesting.
I'm sure it does.
We're going to get long in this episode, and that's okay. But there is one more thing I want with both of you here. This is the best, just because I know you both so well. This is a perfect topic to bring up. I want to know what your guys' thoughts are. A judge's perspective watching a show from outside the ring. Ryan,
I absolutely despise it.
Thank you.
I think it's the worst thing you could ever do.
I'm gonna cut in here. I sat with Ryan during most of the goat show
is
at San Antonio,
painful for me.
And I mean, he was struggling. Struggling. And if I wouldn't respond to anything he would say, I was a very bad person because I have to interact about every single animal he's looking at.
Oh, now Ryan, I'm going to be on the other side of the page than that.
Go right ahead.
I don't pay attention.
Oh Lord,
I don't.
I can't. I can't not pay attention. But
you know as well as I do that is such a different look, especially in the pig thing.
There is there's no doubt, and like that's the thing. I it's not whether like yes, there are times where I'm like, I do not know what this person out in the ring is doing. I am not seeing anything they're saying and whatever. But like the goat shows that I'll sit there and watch deal with, I don't get my hands on them, stuff like that. And it
you can say that with the pig thing too, Ryan. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'll teach you.
That's true. Yeah. I want a lesson. I would like a lesson in handling the hogs. I think that would be fun. But, I think that there is, and you're sitting there in a bleacher. It's a different view. It's a different angle, all that other stuff. But there are things even from there that I read, I see, and I know them to be true and accurate. And the thing for me is like what I used to like to do, and I don't like to do it anymore, but I used to like to watch and be like, okay, so this one's going to win this class if we follow what this person has done. I don't like playing that game anymore. No. I get very disappointed.
Yep.
And I get very confused. And so I don't play that game much anymore. But that when I was younger, I really did like doing that.
Think back when you were younger, right? So when you selected that animal, right? Like this is the calf that should win this class if he follows type, if he follows what he's been doing, like from this.
Right.
That's the animal that you focus in the hardest on, right?
Right.
Like that's the animal that you zero in on. So you're not nitpicking those other animals,
right?
Like you should, like you do as a judge when you're out there.
Yep.
And then that's when it dawned on me. I'm like, someone's like, oh, he messed that up. He switched third and fourth. I'm like, well, third and fourth are never going to come back out.
Right.
There's not a premium difference to matter. But have you studied 1 and 2? They're like, well, I like that 1 and third, so that's the only one I studied. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's not fair to that guy sorting.
No, I think that makes a very valid point. And again, the one thing that I do now when I do watch it, and I still do, I like to see if the things that I read from where I at, if I think that one is by far a good looking one, like does that person call that out? Or if this one's not right at the ground, and whether that one wins or not, I mean, not crippled, but like I could change that one built to there. Does that person say, hey, I need to change that and stuff like that? And some do and some don't. And Dale can attest to you when it does not, I don't handle things well. And so
if I have a hiccup in my class winner, you want me to still identify it? Is that right?
Yes.
And sometimes we don't do that. Sometimes as a judge.
Is that setting yourself up for later?
I get what you're saying, but I just think that just like you were talking about right then, all those other people standing around their ring or whatever. So even if they weren't focused in on that one, when you're talking that one, they're going to focus in on that one. And so if there is something, and there's not a perfect one, if you don't call it out, they're going to be like, well, he didn't say, or she didn't say this about that one. So I always do. I
flip that coin. Flip that coin around.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's just say that bear's right foot turns circles in or toes in for whatever reason they that's not a good thing. I don't know. If that bear's foot comes in and I bring it out, I said, this, and I will, if there's a glaring flaw, I will point it out. But what I won't do is a small nitpick on my class winners. I won't touch it because all I'm doing in my mind, and that's a simple-minded person that's telling you this. In my mind, I am opening the window of doubt in everybody who did not identify that out there as my class winner, potentially that's going to come back in my champion drive. Now, that's the only thing they see. I promise you could say a million good things, but if you say that one flaw, that is all they'll see. And then when they go home, I can't believe he used that bear that toes in up front. I can't, that front left foot turns in. I can't believe he could tie something like that. But if you don't say it, they will not see it.
No, and I think that side of the coin flip, like you're saying, I think that makes very valid statements. And I think that I agree. I do think that the vast majority, and even more to your point, will not see it. There will be somebody like me that does, but the vast majority will not. And so I think that's a very valid way to do it. There's no doubt on that.
And the other thing, the perspective that I take, and I got one of the top 5 chewings I have ever received, and this one was probably the only one that I deserved, was from a grandmother that I was overly critical on her little grandson's pig. And I'll be danged if she wasn't right. I was smarter than anybody else. I understood the hog industry better than anybody else. I was surely the smartest person at that county fair. I mean, and I probably tore that pig down way more than what I needed to. But I wanted to show everybody how smart I was by describing every single fault in that pig. I mean, and that happened, man, that happened in a northern Illinois county fair, or maybe like Ogle County or something. I can't remember, but man, that was a painful one. And I still remember that little boy crying right behind her grandmother. And that really affected me. So now what I will do is I will talk the positives, say the negatives, why that hog got beat. I will not list them all, but like if the third place hog just is bow legged, I'm like, well, the one in third, is really thick, but we need to fix that rear leg structure. But man, I really think that one is one massive beast. You've done a great job putting muscle into your hog. The last thing I say is a positive comment to that kid as they go out the ring.
No, I think that's very commendable and a good way to do it. And people ask me all the time, whatever. I think you always got to start with something positive. Then you've obviously got to say why. I mean, it can't be that they're all just great and wonderful. And so,
Nope.
As they go down, you've always got to say, well, this one, yada, yada, yada. And depending on how many is in the class or whatever, I mean, I think if you need to name off one negative thing or one why that one's standing 5th or 6th is more than fine. End on something positive and go on. But always got to, and I'm not going to lie to y'all or you or anyone. There's a lot of times where it's a struggle to find something that's positive in every single animal that I see.
I'm not lying. At one time, Ryan, I told this young man that his barrow, without question, had the longest tail of any pig that I've ever seen in a pig show.
There you go. I mean,
that was my positive, and he smiled from ear to ear and loved it, and he took off running.
Very creative. I like it, but I do think that is something that you've got to do, because you've got to find something, even if it's this one's really long spined or something. Anything you got to find something, and you can. It's just taking the time and the effort to do it and say it, but I think it's critical.
Yep. Nope. I think it's there again. That's another thing that we can keep these kids in, is if they have a good experience in there.
Yep. Kate, I'd have to say this was the easiest episode I've had. I just sit back and listen and give a little toss some topics out there, and I love it. It's been enjoyable. Kate, I would like you, because Ryan's favorite part is coming up. I would like you to stay with us if you would, because I did pull these question and answers as we were discussing here. And one of them you probably need to chime in on just a little bit. But we are going to move on to that. And I appreciate the main topics that we got to cover, and kind of went a lot of different directions. And maybe we'll get a chance to bring Cade back on here again. But Cade, please stay with us. And we're going to jump right into 3 questions that we have from our listeners. The first one comes from Tony. Hi, guys. Wondering if you could help us settle a family dilemma.
Oh.
My son, who is 11, has a steer that injured his hock several weeks ago. The vet has treated it. We have been tending to it vigorously and doing all the things, and it's just not getting better. The steer is not lame on it at all, but the swelling is still there, and it just won't go away. Our county show is coming up in 3 weeks. It's terminal, and this is his endpoint. My son is reluctant to take him. He doesn't want to be embarrassed by getting buried in class and called out for the swollen hock on the mic. My thinking is he invested in this steer and worked as hard with him all of his time that went into it, and the steer is not limping. He probably won't win a class, but let's take him anyway. I don't know if a judge would criticize a kid over the mic for this kind of thing or not. What would you do if you were me, or suggestion for Adam, my son? Ryan, all you.
I guess not being able to see the said hock or know what the injury is. The one thing that I would say, if the calf is not limping, I don't think that there's any reason why you shouldn't get to go and participate in your deal, because I agree with the father in this deal. He's worked hard, all this other stuff. If the calf is not limping, then I don't think there's any reason not to go show. You know that's there. You're probably, if it is swollen up pretty big, then somebody's probably going to find it and say something about it. But if the animal's not limping, I would suggest you go and end out your year as good as you can, and at least get to have that final deal with your animal.
And I think a lot of judges will see an injury like that and call it out like, hey, this is this young man's worked hard, and due to unfortunate circumstances, it's it is injured, and we got to place it down here, but that doesn't discount what the young man's done. I think you should take him if it's not a injury that is hurting the animal. As long as it's not a welfare issue, I think you should go.
Yep. Seems simple. Excellent answers. The next one comes from Justin. Why are hairy cattle king in the show cattle world? Would love to hear your all's opinion. Why are hairy cattle king in the show cattle world? And you all, that's I think it's a Texan, Ryan. You all's opinion.
I'm assuming they're talking about like haired animals versus American animals that are slick. I that's how I'm going to take it. That's how
not about what the show requires. Just cattle that have hair versus don't.
Yeah. Again, I think that primarily it's because they have hair and you can carve them in and make them look better than what you can American cattle. I think there's something to be said for the fact, whether it's a slick sheared steer or an American animal, that by and large, those are probably better built, more correct muscled, better individuals, because they don't have any hair that you can use to cover up. Nobody pays attention to that or cares about that. But there is something to be said for that, because they don't have that fluffy cow syndrome hair coat. They've had to make those animals better over time to compensate for that. And I take that into consideration, but I've lived in Texas my whole life, and I have a great love for American or eared cattle. But the simple answer is, when you have that hair, they're going to be able to look better, look more presentable, more show ring ready, because you can carve that stuff and just make it even the good animals you can make them look even that much better.
And Justin, everybody talks about how they say, "Oh, I can look through hair, I can do this or that." I call bullshit. I mean, it even in the dang goat barn when we've got those wethers or does and hair, whether it's slicking them off or fitting those does, it is hard. We can tell good from bad, but not a lot of that. And Ryan, I would guess that if you presented those hair cattle just in a show, we line up some of the best hair cattle at Houston and some of the best American cattle that are pretty well slick. Even if those American cattle are incredibly built and everything's right about them, and the hair cattle have some flaws under that hair, 90% of the world is going to gravitate towards those hair cattle, saying those are better built, better cattle.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's correct, but I think you're right. I think 90%, the masses will. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's answering his question. And I mean, I want to hear Kade saying, but that's what I think.
It is fun to watch a bunch of good haired cattle show. I mean, it is fun, and it really makes it from a spectator standpoint. It makes it think, man, that judge has got his hands full. And I'm positive once you get out there and you can see through that stuff from their angle, it becomes a little easier to sort. But I'm going to quiz Dale here. My introduction to hair, or the ability to read through hair, Dale, do you remember a workout that we were on? We had 4 hair steers, and one of them was evidently really bad. But one certain college team ran that calf to the top, and I will never forget this. It was cold, and
this is Michigan State.
Yep, Kelly Bruns.
Yes, I remember it well.
Ran and got that hose, and he soaked that calf, completely drenched him, and that animal looked 100% different than what he did when he was all haired up. And I'll never forget like how bad that thing looked once you soaked that hair down.
No. And Ryan and I talk a lot about when Houston went from hair to slick, and I would come back and at that time there weren't a lot of people from the north going down and getting a chance to watch that Houston steer show. And I'd come back and I'd tell them, guys, there was 20 great ones, 50 really, really good. I mean, this thing is loaded with great calves. I go there that next year when they're slick. I can't find a single calf that I like.
Yep.
There wasn't a single good one the next year. No, we all bought haired cattle, and after validation, they told us we had to cut the hair off. There was not a good slick one then.
But the thing I find interesting, though, is you look at San Antonio and Houston, and then that's the two that I vividly remember better than the others. That was the first time you saw colored cattle start winning.
Oh, yeah. It was a blackout before that.
Because then all of a sudden we didn't have all this hair, and we can look at who's wider, who is better here. Yeah, you could take the flank out because they all look like they cut up in their flank. But like when I was down on the dirt in Houston, the day after us, they brought in all those steers for the grand drive over in the rodeo. We were at the rodeo, and they let us be down there and walking those calves by me, those slick calves by me. I remember just being in awe of how truly wide those calves were at the angle that I was at there. Oh. Like not looking at them from the bleachers or not looking at them from the stands, but man, just that was so much fun in all different colors, mouse colors, reds, black and whites, not just the common black calf, lots of hair. He's a good one.
I agree completely.
Excellent. Justin, you got a very long and good answer from.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No, Justin. It's all good. Jason, now this one here, I should have just axed this one, but yeah, we're going to put it in there. Jason, we show hogs at our county show, jackpots, and state fair. And it's hard for me to understand what the current trend is in the show ring. Seems like each judge is going a different direction. Any guidance from you guys would be appreciated. I'm leaving this one alone. That's all you guys.
Go ahead, Kade.
I learned this from my my NSR days. I was very fortunate to run down. I had a group of friends that were ag teachers in Oklahoma that really took me under their wing and kind of helped me break into that mold. And I asked them one time, I'm like, well, man, you got so-and-so sorting here, so-and-so sorting here, so-and-so sorting here. Like, that's the same set of pigs. How do you do it? And, my friend looked at me and said, it's quite simple. You feed the ones that you like and you feed the ones that you're comfortable feeding. And not every judge is always going to land on what you do, but you will do better consistently if you feed what you like, because you'll learn how to feed them. Then if you go chase every trend that you think every judge is going to line up on, you'll never get it. You'll chase them the whole time and you'll never catch them. So I tell people, feed what you like, feed what you're comfortable doing. Yeah, you're going to miss it. There's Ryan's going to laugh at this. There's people like Dale who will accept a pig show and mess it all up. And then that person is going to get beat. But there's other times that pig will win. And I think that is, if you stay true to what you like and you feed what you like, you can get dang good at it. But when you consistently change to try to fit a certain judge, you'll never make it.
I think that you just like literally hit the nail on the head on multiple things there. I think the feeding what you like is important on multiple levels, not only because you become better at feeding that, but like you're excited about feeding that animal every single day. If you've got one in the barn that you hate, that you have it on feed just because you think so X, Y, and Z that's judging, A, B, and C is going to like that, you're not going to tend to that one as well because you don't like that animal. And that is part of it right there. And the other thing that I would add to what Kade puts out there so eloquently and well is just start with the very best animal that you can afford. I know that sounds real simple, but start with the best one that you can afford and don't worry about who is going to be at your county fair, your state fair, because you're probably not going to know when you buy that one anyway. In Texas, we are fortunate that we normally know who those people are before we have to have one on feed. It's a different thing there, but start with the best one that you can afford, feed the kind that you like, and don't try to trace those trends. Now, I mean, I do think that there is something to be said that if there are sorters out there that are not every single one of them, but there are lots of them that are extremely consistent in what they do and what they like. And if you are opposite of what they do and what they just don't go to the show to that person. I mean, like, cut your losses and, your frustration,
or go at it with a different mentality is what I tell them. Like, take the good out of a show, not just the placing. Take the experience of getting that pig in and out of the ring, another chance up and on the trailer, another chance to go through the routine of your electrolyte program, all that. Take the good out of it. Don't just take your placing as the only reason you went to the dang show.
Yep.
Take everything out of it.
Very well said.
That's good. And I was going to set aside, I do want to bring up the geographic difference here. And Ryan hit on it already here a little bit, and we've talked about this before. For the most part in the north that Kade and I are more familiar with, we don't very rarely know the judge when we're buying, almost never. And so it's almost impossible to pick or select for that judge anyway. But you get into Oklahoma and particularly Texas, and the Texans are the best about. And it's not necessarily they're buying an animal for a certain judge, but they have X amount of animals on feed for the 5 different majors or however many they're going to go to. But they are very good about fitting the animal that maybe will get along best to that specific judge.
Yep.
So it's not necessarily buying for them, but once we have them in our barn and we're feeding the kind we like, we can kind of send them.
That is a pretty neat advantage that they have down there, is that they can take it to, A, B, or C versus us. We take it to August 15th period.
Hey, but yeah.
Excellent. Well, guys, I can't thank you enough, Kade, for coming on, and Ryan, and we just released a Beyond the Circus here this week, so hopefully everybody's enjoyed that. But we're going to wind it up here, and I thank everybody once again, and until next week, be safe.
I personally want to thank Kade for coming on here, and I am sorry that you had to absorb Dale through your childhood, but obviously you came through it quite well, and I look forward to getting to know you further, but y'all come back now, you hear?
I had a blast, guys. Thank you.